With the announcement of Gran Turismo 7 spec 3 arriving in December, it's time to go ahead and build up the bank balances. And today we have a brand new money method featuring one of the latest cars to the game from update 1.63. However, before we do get into this video, I'm trying to get this channel to 70,000 subscribers. So if you want to stay up to date with everything GT7 and motorsport gaming related, then feel free to leave a like, subscribe and turn your notifications on. Anyway, let's get into it then. And we're going to start things off first of all with a quick little disclaimer. The main purpose of this video is to make use of one of 500 plus cars inside of Gran Turismo 7. Of course, in the end, hopefully making use of every single one of them. And unfortunately, no, I cannot go ahead and magic up brand new events to the game. So at least until spec 3, this is what we have to deal with. Anyway, let's get to it. So of course, with all of these builds, we need to start off with the car, and it's going to be my personal favourite from this latest update, the Hyundai Elentra N from 2023. It has a base PP rating of 500.55, a displacement of 1998cc, an FF drivetrain, so yes, it is front wheel drive, but really that doesn't matter too much for this build. Its max power as standard is 276 brake horsepower, weighing 1450 kilograms, and its aspiration is turbocharged. Now all of this can be yours for a very reasonable price of only 36,000 credits. That honestly in GT7 terms is an absolute bargain of a car. So with the car purchased, it's next time to go ahead and tune it up for the event, and we're going to start off with the livery. This is by Wade80, who has this awesome TCR livery. This livery right here will give you every single aero part that I am running, and of course yes, it is for a wide body build. However, if you want to do it yourself and use a completely different livery, of course the first thing you will need to do is start off with the wide body modification. Now after this, we're going to move into the wheels. Now the wheels I'm using here are the Enkey Performance Line PF01s. In terms of the size, width and offset, we are running them at 20 inches or the maximum you can. It's a wide width and a standard offset. Now as for the rest of the car, well, the aero parts on the wide body is going to be a front Type B bumper. Next up is the side, which is going to be the only option other than standard at Type A, and at the rear once again the same is going to be Type A. As for the wing, this is the Type B rear wing. Of course, no customizable parts for this one. Now in terms of racing items, it is worth noting we are running a roll cage here with roll cage Type C. Next up, the big one, the tuning sheet, 700 pp, 634 brake horsepower and 1216 kg for this build. The first thing you're going to want to do is have a set of racing hard tyres on. The next thing you'll also need is a set of racing intermediates. The suspension is fully customizable with 130 at the front, and as for the rear, that is 150. Anti-roll bar is set for 5 across for both, compression at 56 front and 55 rear. Expansion is 66 front and 65 rear, with natural frequency at 2.80 front and 2.90 rear. As for negative camber angle, this is 2.0 front and 2.2 rear, 0 toe angle on the front and 0.05 inwards at the rear. Next up is differential, which is fully customizable. As for the torque setting, this is set to 20, acceleration 25 and braking 10. Transmission up next then, it's fully customizable racing set to 330. As for the manual adjustments, you'll begin with the final at 2.937. Then we've got the gears, 8 of them. 8th is 0.804-413, 7th is 0.931-346, 6th is 1.120-287, 5th is 1.399-230, 4th is 1.816-177, the third gear is 2.448-131, second is going to be 3.428-94, and then first is 5.174-62. And that will complete the gears. Next up is ballast at 85 just to get it under 700 pp. Then positioning is -5 with a fully customizable ECU with no restrictions. Front downforce 150, rear 270, high RPM turbocharger, and I'll explain a bit more on this later because there is a certain part that you cannot install as it will drop the power. anti-lag system set to strong, racing intercooler, racing air cleaner, silencer and manifold. As for brake system, this is racing slotted disc with racing pads, a normal handbrake, brake controller. I typically have this set to about 3 to 4 towards the rear. Now as for the rest of the parts, this is just going to be the racing clutch and flywheel, and then we have the engine tuning, which is going to be bore up, stroke up, engine balance tuning, polished ports, and then you'll notice I do not have the high lift camshaft installed. That's because with a medium or high RPM turbocharger, installing this part will actually reduce the overall power into the 500 brake horsepower range, so you get more for not installing this part. So just be sure if you've got medium or high RPM, do not install the high lift camshaft. We then have titanium connecting rods and pistons, racing crank, all the weight reductions and increased body rigidity. Now before we get into the event then, let's quickly go ahead and explain the build to why it is built the way it is. And of course, first of all, this is the Hyundai Elentra N, which means it's a front wheel drive car. However, I will say in terms of its base design and some of the aero parts here, it makes a great looking TCR car. So for me, it was all about building a car that can go up against the numerous Civics I've built up over the years. And it does that incredibly well. Really, all this car needs to do is get a race engine swap and it'll be right up there as a full-blown Group 4 car. Now of course the car itself is front wheel drive, however I will say here that it doesn't suffer too much from tyre wear. In fact, I would say it's rather quite good on its tyres. Its main weakness is fuel, meaning that players every now and then might have to lift and coast or just short shift as much as possible. This way you can go ahead and stretch the fuel consumption out as much as you possibly can. Overall, this is a solid car and a fantastic one to build up. So next up then is event and difficulty. So let's go ahead and get started then. First of all, with difficulty. The main thing I recommend here is setting your difficulty to easy. Most of the time I would just recommend hard, however easy here allows you to complete 6 laps and stop and wait. As for the event, we're going to head into World Circuits and then into Europe. Now once you are in Europe, you want to head over to the left hand side and look for 24-hour Le Mans racing circuit, or more commonly known as Le Mans. Look for the second event here, which is the World Touring Car 700, and go ahead and enter. And with all the setup done and dusted, let's go ahead and get into the strat then. Now in terms of this section of the video, it's pretty much the same as every other WTC 700 run. However, if I don't explain it in this video, I'm sure that someone will call me out on it. So go ahead and put the car to fuel mix 6 then, and just work your way through the grid. The AI shouldn't give you really that much bother. Just be careful if one of them spins and brings out a yellow flag. You'll want to avoid that. Now in terms of taking the lead, you should be able to do this with relative ease very early in the event. From there, just go ahead and build it up. From lap 2, I fully recommend that you keep your eye out on the weather radar. The main reason for this is that the chance for rain is typically highest from the end of lap 2 to around about lap 3. Now at that point, if it doesn't come in, you are pretty safe that it will more than likely avoid you for the first portion of the event and start dropping towards the latter half. So at the end of the third lap, I had no rain at this point, so it was time to just go ahead and waste some time in the pits. The first was a new set of racing hards. I didn't particularly need them and they would have been good for another stint, but it just kills a few extra seconds in the pit stop. And of course I'm filling the car to full. It's worth noting that the Hyundai can be quite aggressive on its fuel usage, so that third and final lap every stint you might have to do a bit of lifting and coasting, and of course a bit of short shifting, but it should make it just fine. So out we go for our second stint. Now in terms of this stint, I know that we've got a high chance of rain inbound. However, it did eventually come, but not enough to actually force myself and the AI to pit in. So this changed it up a bit. Unfortunately, the stop and wait method won't really work this time around. So knowing I had to do an extra 7th lap, I boxed in at the end of lap 6 and just wasted a bit of extra time. A new set of hards and filling the tank to full so I can go fuel mix 1 for the final lap. I do typically find if you have rain early in the race and it trips up the AI and they start crashing all over the track, this will massively work to your favour to be able to go ahead and do that 6 lap stint where you just go ahead and park at the finish line. Unfortunately, this just wouldn't be the case for me. So upon leaving the pits for the final time, we go ahead and put the car into fuel mix 1 as we have plenty of fuel to burn. Of course, this is a very aggressive fuel car, so unfortunately it would use pretty much all of it in a single lap at fuel mix 1, but we do take victory very, very easily. In terms of the overall time completing 7 laps, it was 30 minutes 55.233. Of course, typically you will get rain here, which will actually reduce that time to dot on 30 minutes. In terms of the payout, 825,000 credits in that 30-minute period. And there we go, that is our first money method of 1.63 done and dusted. I've got plenty of money builds ready to come in the run up to spec 3, including the current top 5 money methods, which I'm sure will change over in December. Anyway, a massive thank you to all of my channel members on screen, and a huge thank you to you guys watching at home. I do want to apologise if this guide does seem a bit rushed. More than likely it is, because the commentary is very, very difficult to do. Unfortunately, I've woken up with an incredibly sore throat today. However, I didn't want to miss my own personal deadline. I'll be back tomorrow anyway, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care, guys. Peace.